Hello everyone and welcome. This video covers TEAK G.2A Skill number 2. Our objective today is to calculate the midpoint from a number line. And so by the end of this video, that's exactly what you should do. You should be able to calculate a midpoint from a number line. Now, a number line is a single straight line that's used to represent numbers. We have a number line that's right here. No numbers are on it, but you can see that it represents segment AB. Now, the number, we're just going to put a variable instead of writing the number. And so the number that would be represented by A would be x1. The number represented by point B would be x2. Now, to get the midpoint, what you have to do, the formula is this. You're going to take x1, you're going to add it to x2, and then you're going to divide all of that by 2. This little formula is called the midpoint formula, but it's only used when you have numbers on a number line. So we're going to look at that same number line, and I'm going to read it. It says, if AB has endpoints at x1 and x2, then the midpoint M, right here, M, is going to be equal to x1 plus x2 divided by 2. This is the coordinate for the midpoint. So now that you know the formula, we're going to come down here and we're going to look at this number line. So notice that we have some points in red, but we also have numbers in blue below. So if we're looking at A corresponds to negative 15, B corresponds to negative 10, C corresponds to negative 3, D corresponds to 5, and E corresponds to 16. I want to find the measure of AC, where that midpoint is, okay? So I'm going to say the midpoint, M, is going to be x1 plus x2 divided by 2. My x1 is going to be my A, which is a negative 15. And to that, I'm going to add my x2, which is C, which is my negative 3. I'm then going to divide the sum by 2. So I get a negative 18 in the numerator, 2 in the denominator. So the midpoint would be located at negative 9. Coming down to that next problem, we see find the midpoint of AE. We're going to use that same midpoint formula, x1 plus x2 divided by 2. And that's going to be equal to A is negative 15. We saw that from the previous problem. And we're going to add to it E, which is 16. And then we're going to divide that by 2. The numerator simplifies to be a positive 1 over 2. So the midpoint is going to be at 1/2. I wrote it as a fraction and a decimal number. Let's move to the next problem, BD. So I'm going to pull my midpoint formula. M is equal to x1 plus x2 divided by 2. X1 is going to be negative 10. X2 is going to be 5. And I'm going to divide it by 2 because that's what the formula says. So negative 10 plus 5 gives me a negative 5 in the numerator, a 2 in the denominator. I divide negative 5 by 2, and I get a negative 2.5, which is equal to a negative 2.5. So I have written it as an improper fraction, a mixed number, and a decimal number. Let's move to find the midpoint of CD. Once again, I'm going to use the midpoint formula of M is equal to x1 plus x2 divided by 2. I'm going to find my C point, which is a negative 3. And then I'm going to find my D point, which is a positive 5. I divide that sum by 2. Negative 3 plus 5 is a positive 2 divided by 2, which is a 1. So the coordinate of the midpoint of CD would be 1. Find the midpoint of DE. So we're going to use our midpoint formula. M is equal to x1 plus x2 divided by 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find my D coordinate, which is 5. I'm going to find my E coordinate, which is 16. I'm going to add that together. I get 21 divided by 2. I divide 2 into 21, and I get 10 and a half, which is equal to 10.5. I'm going to box in my answer. And what you see is an improper fraction, a mixed number, and a decimal number. So our final problem is going to be a word problem, and it says the temperature on a thermometer dropped from a reading of 25 degrees to a negative 8 degrees. Find the midpoint of these two temperatures. And so I'm going to use my midpoint formula, which is M is equal to x1 plus x2 divided by 2. My x1 is 25. My x2 is going to be a negative 8, and I'm going to divide that by 2. 25 plus a negative 8 is going to give me 17 all over 2. I'm going to divide 2 into 17, and I get 8 and 1/2, and I'm going to write it as a decimal being 8.5. I'm going to block my answer in, and I have 8.5 degrees, 8.5 degrees, or 17 over 2 degrees. Guys, this is it. So thanks for watching, and remember, every bit of practice brings you guys closer to success. Good luck with your problems, and keep up the great work.